Hi, everyone. So, we're going to be covering our fourth and final category of informal fallacies. This category is the fallacies of ambiguity, and these will be really familiar to you because we've already talked about ambiguity when we talked about language and its role in critical thinking. So, before we get started, I just wanted to remind you that we had two types of ambiguity: semantic ambiguity, which had to do with a word meaning more than one thing, and syntactic ambiguity, which had to do with a sentence or phrase being able to be interpreted in more than one way, either because of an error or just confusing grammar or syntax, meaning word order or punctuation, something like that. So, the two fallacies that we're going to cover under fallacies of ambiguity correspond to those two types of ambiguity, semantic and syntactic. So, fallacies of ambiguity arise because of the imprecise use of language in the argument. Specifically, there's some kind of ambiguity either in the premises, the conclusion, or both. So, we have two fallacies, like I said. One is called equivocation, and that's related to semantic ambiguity when there's an issue with the actual word having more than one meaning. Or Amphiboly, which is another fallacy, similar, but in this case, there's an issue with syntactic ambiguity. So let's first talk about equivocation. Um, in this Foxtrot comic, the main character is saying, Steve's helping me cram for finals. And his mom's like, that's not how it works. So he's cramming, but he's cramming food into his mouth rather than cramming information into his head. So cramming has a couple of meanings here. And so the problem, again, with equivocation is that the conclusion of the argument depends on the double meaning of a word, semantic ambiguity, in this case, cramming. Here's another example. Only, and this is an argument, someone's making a deductive argument, only man is rational, no woman is a man, therefore no woman is rational. So they're saying that only men are rational, but women are not men, therefore no woman is rational. The trick in this is that in the first premise, the word man is meant to mean human, that only man is rational, meaning only humans are rational. But in the second premise, the person switches the meaning of man to mean male, which is why no woman is a man, because a woman is not male. Therefore, no woman is rational. So they use the word man in two different ways, and in that way, they were able to make this fallacious argument. Here's another example. Kevin told me he pitches a wicked fastball, so his fastballs must be evil. His fastball pitches must be evil. In the first sentence, Kevin told me he pitches a wicked fastball. Wicked means very good or strong. And in the second one, in the interpretation in the conclusion, here, wicked is meant to be evil. So again, the word switches meaning in the course of the argument, which leads to the fallacy. So if you want to try to detect equivocation in an argument, first identify what are the important words and phrases in the argument, note whether they could have more than one meaning, and then track the meaning of those words throughout the argument. And if it shifts, the meaning shifts, then equivocation is occurring. And remember that when you are constructing your own arguments, just make sure to use precise language. Okay, amphiboly is the other fallacy. Again, it occurs to a grammatical or punctuation error or how words are arranged. In other words, syntactic ambiguity. The premise can be interpreted in two different ways, but the conclusion is based on the wrong interpretation. So if you see the sign here, one child might say to the other, "Hey, you can't play here." And the other kid says, "Why not?" And the first child says, "Because you're too fast." And the sign says, "Only slow children can be here." Right? So here the sign says slow children. Um, Obviously it's a street sign. We don't expect it to be totally grammatically complicated and accurate. But instead of saying slow, comma, children, meaning slow down because there's children, it just says slow children. Um, Here's another example. So let's say that someone is doing some sort of court case and says that the contract signed by both parties reads, in exchange for building a treehouse in my yard to be used as a writer's retreat, I, Barbara Sykes, promise to pay my nephew Fred Sally $25,000, which, by the way, seems like a lot to me, and give him my pool table only if he finishes the job by July 1st, 2019. Therefore, since Fred did not finish building the treehouse until August 17th, it follows that he gets neither the $25,000 nor the pool table. So the way this contract was written, it says that she promises to pay the nephew $25,000 and give him my pool table only if he finishes the job by July 1st. But the intent could be argued that the $25,000 was given to construct the treehouse no matter what. The pool table was only if he finishes by July 1st. This problem could have been solved by inserting a comma right here, where it says, I promise to pay my nephew $25,000. And this is all, again, the beginning of the sentence, it says it's in exchange for building a treehouse. And then the second part is giving the pool table if he finishes by July 1st. So you can see that because of that missing comma, there was confusion in that contract, and which could lead to legal issues. In this case, probably the lawyer for Barbara Sykes knows what Barbara Sykes intended, but is using this fallacy and this error and this ambiguity to get out of her having to pay the $25,000. So, uh, same thing, it's a similar thing as in equivocation. C, is there ambiguity in the argument? And could it be interpreted in two different ways due to that ambiguity? And is a conclusion based on the wrong interpretation of that ambiguity? So check those things when you are looking at other people's arguments, as well as when you're constructing your own arguments. So that concludes all the fallacies that we plan to cover. In the next couple of assignments, I'll be having you do some sort of summarizing activities and assignments. So look at those videos for explanations of what's going to come next. Thank you.